the Njoku School channel on YouTube, and this is Teacher Tech Talk. I've always felt like I have to like remind myself, what is this again? Teacher what? Teacher Tech Talk. It is Monday night, and this is when I record or stream this recording that is being done live, and the focus is really on technology and education and how I can share ideas with teachers, but not only teachers in the classroom, but teachers, they could be parents, community members, anyone who's engaged in educating, um, our children or even each other. And so yeah, so far this has been going pretty well. I've covered quite a few different topics, and tonight I'm covering a topic that kind of intersects between two conversations that I had today. Actually, today here in New York City was a professional development day. So students were not in class, at least not at high school, and all the teachers citywide were all engaged in professional development. And for those of you who don't know what professional development is, it's when it's literally what it sounds like, developing your professional skill sets. So you have workshops, things that are workshops and trainings that are in place to help elevate teacher skills in the classroom. So today in our school, we focused a lot around cultural responsive classrooms and how to give student voice in the classrooms, and other workshops on things that we needed for our own particular school. But in the midst of those conversations, something came up that I thought was interesting, and the question was around student voice and how to to better engage students, especially in this time of remote learning, and also in this era of social media. And something that came up was a teacher said, how do we use TikTok in the classroom? Which I thought was interesting because I remember once upon a time when you mentioned anything like Twitter or Facebook or anything else, Instagram, and to mention it in the same breath as classroom education was sacrilegious. It was like, no, 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 you can't even go there. But with remote instruction, remote learning, what's happened is that all of a sudden, because we are now in the space of social media, and I believe like what I'm doing right now is social media, and but this is the same thing I do with my students live on a daily basis, with my staff on a weekly basis, with other principals weekly and monthly, where we are literally sitting in this digital space where we communicate with each other, and I'm like, this is exactly what social media is. It's medium that is created for the consumption of people socially. And so now we're in this space that we are actually using the tools that we once was considered dangerous and evil, and we had to protect our children from. We're now using it as a mode of communication, because we're literally in competition with that same medium now. We live in the same space. So, like, for example, when our schools went into lockdown and we still had to communicate with families, yes, we had the normal telephone numbers, and we had emails, but we realized that it wasn't fully working. So we had to like really amp up what we were doing with our social media as far as our website was concerned, and also creating an Instagram page and really using Twitter and even YouTube. So we literally created the gamut of social media platforms, accounts in those social media platforms to try to reach out to our families wherever they may be. And it actually worked. We had kids following us on Instagram, kids following us on Facebook, kids following and families as well, so we could communicate. So now it's like, okay, now we know this thing here. We've always known this thing called social media is very, very powerful. But now we're like, okay, now how do we intentionally use it in the classrooms? The one social media I can say that I've known for a fact that it's actually been used effectively in the classroom, and the first time I saw this being used was a number of years ago. I would go back as far as, this would have been 2000. Wow, this would have been 10. Actually, no, 2009 maybe. Yeah, the fall of 2009, possibly spring of 2010. I was working on my license to pick him up to be an administrator, and as part of my program, I had to shadow a principal, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind me mentioning his name because he's a very good principal, an amazing principal, and I've been spoken to him since that time. But Dr. Conti, I believe I think he's a doctor. Dr. Conti, the principal at New Design High School in Chinatown in New York City. I was recommended to go visit him. I was told he was very innovative what he was doing in the school, and I went to go visit him. And when I got there, um, first of all, I mean, let me not even go to details. Like it was very, very different. I've never seen anything like this. I got there and he didn't even have an office. His office was in the actual main office. He had a desk in the main office, open like everybody else. So secretary sat next to him. Everybody, it was wide open. Students could walk up to him. The things that it still seem to this day seems like wow, that's very, very different. And I remember the other thing too that was different about him. He was teaching. He taught a class, and he said he's always taught a class every semester since he's been principal. He's taught a class, and what does he teach? He teaches a media class. So I remember shadowing him and going to his classroom, and he literally, and when I walked in, students walked in, and they were like, hey Scott," and this is a school where students are on a first name basis with the principal and the staff, which I've worked in schools like that. To me, it's not a big deal. It's really about the kind of culture you're trying to establish in your school. And I remember the kids walked in, and the first thing he said is, "So I was going over your responses to my question on Twitter last night." I was like, "Wait a minute, did he just say questions on Twitter?" Mind you, this is 2010, so what's about 11 years ago. So this is early on, before Twitter was like, I mean, Twitter was popping back then, but not like now. And he was using Twitter as a way to communicate with his classroom, so with his students. So every student in his classroom had a Twitter account. So he would post a question, and they'll respond to him and each other. And he had this space where they were all communicating with each other. I mean, the name of the school is New Design High School. So that's definitely new design. How implementing social media into the classroom. I saw that, and I thought that was amazing. And I remember telling myself, I'm going to use that in my classroom. I am going to use that in my classroom, but it never happened. You know why? Because I won't lie, I got a little nervous about policies and rules and making sure I don't get in trouble because social media is still a bad thing. So I never really put really cross that line into using social media in my classroom or in my school. But today that's very different. Now today, like it's part of communication now. So as we know, you have all these different platforms of social media. And as I create my content, I definitely store my content in YouTube. I stream to Facebook. So those of you right now who are watching this, you're either watching this on YouTube, Facebook, my main Facebook page, or my one of my Facebook group pages. You will be watching this on LinkedIn because I do post. I'm not LinkedIn live yet, so I do post these videos onto LinkedIn after the fact, and then on Periscope, which is linked to Twitter. So one of those spaces, and also Twitch. So one of the spaces you're going to be watching this on, and it's interesting because I don't have to explain to you how powerful this is as far as being able to send a message out there, and how powerful of this as a learning tool this is. But I've said all that and spent the past 8 minutes to come down to now discussing with you um, uh, another platform. So I was talking to you about how the question came up about TikTok and how to use TikTok in the classroom. But then this evening, my wife was like, "How do you use Clubhouse in education or in the classroom?" And I was like, wow, Clubhouse. So for those of you who know what Clubhouse is, and I'm going to probably destroy and butcher explaining Clubhouse to you. So Clubhouse is like the new bad boy in town. Like, at school you have that new kid, but the new kid is not shy. The new kid is not timid. The new kid he walks in and all of a sudden all the guys are like, yo, look at homie's sneakers. Yo, he fly. All the girls are like, okay, he cute. Like this is I know this is a bad analogy here, but this is what Clubhouse is. And the thing about Clubhouse is it was so popular and it's been so popular and so fast growing that I had no idea what it was. I think about 2 months ago or so, maybe 6 weeks ago, I had no idea what Clubhouse was. It wasn't until a good friend of mine, Carl, was like, "Hey, yo, you need to put your content on Clubhouse. And I was like, Clubhouse? Like, what are you talking about? I was completely dumbfounded. And he was like, Clubhouse is this new app. I won't lie. Part of me was like, okay, he bugging. He's probably imagining things because I've never heard of Clubhouse, and I am in social media. I create content. Why would I not know about Clubhouse? So he sent me the link. I looked it up, and I was like, okay, here's this social media application called Clubhouse. But what was interesting about Clubhouse beyond it just being a social media platform is the fact that it's 100% only audio. And I was stuck. I'm like, social media that's only audio? How is that possible? Then I was like, wait a minute. I have a podcast that I do every week. Even though it's a video podcast, I do have my podcast is on it's on Apple, it's on Google Podcasts, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's in multiple podcasting platforms. And podcasting is solely audio. Even though you can record your podcast video wise and then put it onto video sites, and like like Joe Rogan does. You can go on and watch him interview people, but if you want to hear his but it is a podcast, so its initial intention was for it to be something that you hear. So, but the idea of having a social media platform that is voice, not text like Twitter, or video like YouTube, or video like video and images like you would find on Instagram and Twitter, and like almost I would say almost all social media platforms up until now have been a combination of either voice or sound, video, images, and text. But in this case, Clubhouse is solely. I mean, of course, you have texting, but you have to be able to read and be able to maneuver the space. But the content itself is solely audio. And I thought to myself, okay, how in the world can this actually work, right? So I logged on, and when I logged on, and I went in there, and I was like, and I went into they have rooms in there. So if I remember correctly, it's like hallways. Then you have rooms. I don't know, like that stuff is stuff like it's too technical for me. But I went into Clubhouse, and I went into a room, and I was like, okay, this is interesting because first of all, before I went into a room, I was going through like the different rooms in there. So when you go in Clubhouse, it's like literally a clubhouse. So you walk into a clubhouse, and imagine walking into a clubhouse that is actually a big old house with different rooms, and each room you walk into is a conversation happening. When you walk into those rooms, you are listening into the conversation, and you are actually able to, if the moderators in that room permit you to actually be part of the conversation. And then the amazing thing about it is the people who are in these spaces are regular everyday people, including some major influencers. So I've seen people like I mean I've seen quite a few like well-known influencers that I'm familiar with in those spaces. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm sitting here listening to somebody that I've only seen on video or interview speak here. Um, and I give an example. The other last 2 nights ago, I went on and I saw one that I saw a room open that had Mace on there. For those of you who remember, for those of you of a certain age who remember Mace, Bad Boy Mace from Harlem, who's now Pastor Mason Betha in Atlanta. He was on there with his fans and they were talking. So I clicked on there and I'm sitting listening. And I'm like, yo, that's Mace. And people asking him questions, he's engaging with them. I was like, this is very interesting. I've heard about Oprah being on there. I think tonight Elon Musk is on there, but with everything happening with hedge funds and short selling and GameStop, he's on there. So and people can actually engage. The moderators in this space can actually bring people up to stage to talk and everything else. And I know I'm using language, and a lot of you are like, "What are you talking about?" It's one of those things that you have to actually to actually immerse yourself in to understand. But it's not even that complicated. So so I've been in the spaces, and I'll tell you some of the downs of this Clubhouse app. Like any other app, ratchetness is going to be is going to be all existent. And not to talk down on anybody, it is what it is. But I've been in that space, and I've been like, okay, some of the undesirable behaviors that you would find in any social media application is there as well. but the cool thing about it is, usually the rooms are very clearly listed. If you're walking in here, we're going to be talking about this, and some of the things might not be appropriate for certain age groups, in my opinion. But the vast majority of it has been very interesting. I've walked into rooms where I've gone into rooms where people like in Nigeria are talking about religion and faith. And I was like, this is very interesting. I'm listening to people talk live, and I can raise my hand to join in the conversation, and they can hear me, and I can hear them. And I'm looking at people who are speaking, and they're from all around the world. Nigerians in England, in America, in Nigeria. Then I went into one that a couple of weeks ago that was Black doctors and scientists and researchers talking about COVID-19 and actually breaking it down, the science behind the virus itself. And I sat there and I was like, not only am I listening to a very powerful, well executed conversation about COVID-19, it was being done by Black doctors, which was funny because, yes, on CNN I see doctors talking about it, but to sit in a room where you have people who have read the research and understand the vaccine and everything else, and they're engaging, and then regular people who might be laymen and did not know enough about this information are asking questions. I remember a lady asked about, like, she was pregnant, and she was like, how does it impact me as a pregnant woman? And I thought it was so powerful. Like, this is amazing to be able to access that level of knowledge and expertise, and not something that you just read, but something you can actually engage in verbally. So now, the question is, what about for education? Is this a tool that can be used in the classroom? Is this a tool that teachers can use? And when my wife asked me that question, I was like, you know what? That's a good question. Because I've been inviting a lot of people. I've been telling a lot of people about this and inviting them to Clubhouse, so they can engage in this new technology. But not once did I think about its application in the classroom. And I will tell you this, honestly, I'm not sure I can clearly see, it's there. It's definitely there. And I think my response is more of me being cautious, only because, like any social media platform, there is going to be the negatives in there, the behaviors in there, the things that we don't want our children to be part of. But that exists in YouTube, that exists in Instagram, it exists in all these different platforms. So if I remove my consideration of those things and just look at Clubhouse by itself, I'll have to say that it could be extremely powerful in the sense that, of course, like, for example, that conversation that I sat in and listened to about COVID-19. When I say it was a high level conversation, to the point where I was literally Googling things they were saying. I was like, okay, this is beyond my pay grade. So when they were talking about certain things, that certain lingo, scientific lingo, I was like, yo, I need to know what that means. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, wow, I learned more in this half an hour sitting here listening to this conversation that I've learned about COVID-19, all the videos I've watched. Because it's one thing to watch someone just in a video just telling you directly what they know, but it's another thing to be engaged in the conversation, even if you're passively engaged in the conversation. Because what's happening is you have people going back and forth, and misconceptions being torn down, and things being brought to light, and questions being asked, and it's like you say in the classroom. And as long as you're engaged, it doesn't mean you have to participate to be engaged. I said this, engagement doesn't necessarily have to be participation, because there's other ways to measure engagement, especially with students. But I sat in that room and I was like, I've learned so much. I have such an interesting, such a advanced understanding of what's happening with the vaccine just from this conversation. So I'm imagining being a teacher, being able to say, class, for extra credit, tonight in Clubhouse, this group is going to be discussing this topic. So I would like for you to, if you're interested for extra credit, be able to go in there and participate in that conversation. It's almost like saying there's going to be a community meeting around this particular topic, down in City Hall. So for extra credit, attend the meeting and come back and write a report about what you learned from it. So and that's what it is. It's almost like Clubhouse has the potential and does have these mini town halls. Like tonight at 10 o'clock, it's already 10:50. It's been all over the social media that Elon Musk is going to be on Clubhouse, and people are going to be able to go in there and engage, listen to him, and maybe possibly engage him in conversation about his viewpoint of what's happening in the financial markets. And like those kinds of spaces are spaces that you're not privy to. If there's a town hall in D.C., it's not like you can drive to D.C. if you're in California and go sit in on that town hall. Elon Musk, I believe, is in California. I'm in New York. Him on Clubhouse means that anyone around the world, regardless of time zone, can log on and listen and possibly converse with him. That's something that's very powerful. That's something that only shows us how advanced this technology that we're living in right now is, especially for education. But okay, what about beyond that? Okay, because that's the one way I think that could be done there. And also, it could also be where, again, barring the regulations as far as making sure we're keeping our kids safe in social media, I can also see, an assignment where maybe students are putting together a community event, some sort of social event where maybe you're having a debate or you're having a panel, and you can run that live, and then audio wise, people could just log on and be part of that. And again, I think that's something that's very, very powerful. Now there's another aspect of Clubhouse I think that is worth considering for teachers. And as I spoke about in the beginning of this conversation, I talked about today being a professional development day in New York City. So a lot of school, most high schools were engaged in professional development for teachers. I thought to myself, it was actually went on Clubhouse and looked up but there's also clubs in there that are formulated, like permanent clubs that formulated. And I noticed that there were two big teacher clubs. One was called Teachers Lounge and something else. I thought to myself, wow, the ability for teachers to create affinity groups or mastermind groups where you can meet with other teachers nationwide or from your locality and say, hey, at this time we're going to be on Clubhouse so we could talk about different topics having to do with education, or we can jump on this space and we can talk about how to lesson plan for this topic or this subject, and being able to have a space where other teachers can join in that conversation. I mean, I'm trying to imagine what would that be like to create those kinds of spaces, and that's another possibility you can have in Clubhouse. Some things like that. What else? It could also be presentations to like families. Like if you're like, you know what, parent teacher conferences. I don't know. I mean, that could be a little bit more complicated, but it could just be like, hey, I'm going to be live on, especially right now with where we are now with remote interconnectivity, with remote instruction. Maybe it's like having a school can have a town hall, and the town hall can be like we do right now. We do it on Zoom. Then we also broadcast on YouTube, so anyone who's not able to jump on a Zoom call can at least watch it remotely on Zoom, and maybe could be broadcasted as well on Clubhouse. So if you're on Clubhouse, and let's say you're at work and all you can do is just log on to hear the audio. You can do that through Clubhouse. So I'm seeing all these different possibilities here, and I think like with any other piece of technology, software, application, it comes down to how far you're willing to think outside of the lines, how far you're willing to color outside of the lines as a possibility for using these technologies. And I think that's the thing that's very powerful about this. Again, how far are you willing to let your mind expand to say, how do we use this? And we saw that with going into quarantine, and how we were able within a short window of time to all of a sudden move from the classroom into this online space, and then how we were able to all of a sudden draft all these social media tools to keep in communication with our families. So these are the things I think they're very possible, and it's one of the things I'm exploring and keeping my attention out on to see like how are people using this. I went on YouTube and typed in Clubhouse application and teaching. I saw nothing. Clubhouse application and education. I saw nothing. It was mostly just like how to use. And one thing I would say, I think Clubhouse has only been around since April, maybe. I think the bit is still in beta version, so it's only been around since April. I might be wrong about that. So it's a very young thing. And even right now, if you want to join Clubhouse, you couldn't just don't download and start sign up. You have to be invited in, or you apply in, and somebody who's already in lets you in, which is interesting. It's like literally a Clubhouse. So somebody has to say, "Hey, here's an invitation for you to join Clubhouse. I'm inviting you as my invitee. I think invited invitee, whatever, into Clubhouse." The other way is you actually go in Clubhouse, you sign up, and you wait for somebody who knows who you are to bring you in. It was funny because when I went, even though my buddy Carl told me about it, I applied and I kind of was waiting, like, okay, what do I do now? And to the point I was like, this is whack. I don't even understand why I'm here waiting. Why can't I just say accept, terms of agreement and be in it? I think the following day, I was let in, and who let me in? My PTA president let me in, and I was like, oh, okay, she's in Clubhouse. And all of a sudden, when I got in, I could see for my contacts all people that were already in Clubhouse, and it was very few people in my contact list for my phone that was in Clubhouse. And but then there was a lot of people on my phone who were heavy users of social media who were not in Clubhouse. And I was like, man, this is very exclusive. But at the same time, it's not hard to get in. It's one of those things where you just have to either be invited in or you just fill it in, and trust me, within time somebody will let you in. And yeah. So one quick thing I want to show you before I end this conversation. This is a short conversation. I know 30 minutes. Some of you are like, how's that short? But I can go for an hour. I wanted to share with you really quickly. I don't know if I can do this the right way. I wanted to share with you off of my phone what Clubhouse looks like. So I'm going to try this, and I haven't done this before, and let's see. Here we go. So off the bat, let me see here. Make sure I'm doing this right. So this is my phone right here, and Clubhouse is this app right here. Yes, please do not forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that when I produce more content, you have access to it. Okay, so let's go back to what just happened here. Okay, that was weird. I don't know what that was. A little glitch in the matrix. So Clubhouse is this app right here with this guy holding this guitar. Okay, so which is funny because when I first saw this, I was like, okay, what is this? Clubhouse, guys, is this a music app? So click on there, and this is what it looks like. It's very simple, no frills. You can see a list of people who are in there, who are following you, and literally this is like a hallway. Okay, once you're in the house, and all these little white boxes are the different let me see here, different rooms that are in there right now. Okay, different rooms, and if you see, like, there are literally hundreds of rooms, and yes, that's the only hard part is like to scroll through it and see what's going on at that moment in time. It's there. Okay, so I know I'm going through this really quickly. So and the great thing about it is you yourself, you can start your own room in there. Anyone can start a room, and it could be an open room, it could be a social room, it could be a closed room, and that's the one thing I think is very powerful about this, the closed room. But the closed room thing is the fact that you can actually create a room, and only people who are invited into that room could be in that room. My bedtime alarm could, only people they're invited could be in that space. So if you're using it for education, you can have a room already calendared in. But that's the great thing about this, because you can actually create a calendar, and you can actually create a calendar for yourself and say, okay, and name your event. Like in this case, I'll be the host. You could pick a date on when that event is going to be, and at what time, and you type your description in there, and then you can choose to make that a closed event. And the great thing about it is, if it's a closed event, a closed room, only people who are allowed that you invite could be in that room. And actually, let me make sure I'm not talking I'm not talking nonsense here, because I've actually I've created rooms. What I did with my rooms was see here. Actually, I think the best way for me to do that is to see what happens when I do that. Okay, yeah. So if you see, when I hit close, what it does, I can choose the people. So you would have to know ahead of time who those people are, and you can just choose them, and they can come in there. So it could be closed, and then you have social, and you just kind of go, and you can do it open. You can do it open. So it says here, open, start a room, open to everyone. Start a room with people I follow, and start a room with people I choose, which is interesting. The only problem is if you do something like this, close people I choose, you have to go and find all those people in there, or you could just do open, which I've done, and then anyone who's walking by can see it, and if they're interested, they can come in. Now, how do I use this? Interestingly enough, I've Clubhouse. And there are rules and regulations around that because my podcast is being recorded, and if anyone comes in here and they're engaging in the conversation, they need to know it's being recorded. So what I've done is, in my description, I was putting in this is a podcast, it's being recorded. And the great thing about it, because I just literally plug in from my Rodecaster Pro, my desk is super dirty right now. And let me see if I can show you guys what that looks like. Yeah, my desk is a hot mess. Let me see if I can switch over to. I don't know why my thing's doing that. Something's weird here. Maybe I think I need to reboot my switcher, but it's okay. So I'm just going back to here. So my Rodecaster, and if you look at my previous videos, I've actually talked about this in teaching Tech Talk. It allows me. This is what I use to record my podcast. It's my preamp. And I can actually plug it directly to my phone so that whatever I'm saying can really pump into my phone. So what I do is I pump live from a Rodecaster Pro into the phone, and then it's almost like people who walk by may join in. They're joining in to my podcast live. So it would be the same thing as like if I was if I was doing a town hall or whatever, I would do the same exact thing. So I get to still record my podcast, still have my video podcast, have to have get my content from my podcast, and also have it on Clubhouse. So yeah, the possibilities are endless. Some of these things I'm saying, some of you might be like, okay, what is he talking about tech wise? But again, I would suggest to you, like go to the Apple Store, and that's the one thing that is unfortunate. It's only for the iOS platform. It's only for Apple phones. They haven't come out with anything for Android yet. So that's the other thing too. I think that makes it even more exclusive, because if you're on a Samsung, you cannot download this app. The app is free on Apple and in the Apple Store. And once you download it, if somebody invites you and gives you an invitation, then you go there. You can log on and sign up. If not, what you should do is just download it and sign up and just wait. Or find out if anybody that you know has it, and they can literally let you in. So it's literally invitation come in, or they can open the back door for you to walk in, and you still have the same privileges as somebody person had an invitation. And that's the thing that's pretty awesome about this. But again, this is another social media platform that I think has tremendous applications in education. It's just about figuring out like how do we do it in a way that's safe. And but I think we can, because we're doing it already in other platforms. I use YouTube. I use various social media platforms in my school, because this is how we communicate now. But at the same time, I have a lot of rules and regulations within my community on how the students are to engage with school use, versus how they may engage personally. And something with teachers and other adults as well. And yes, there's always going to be some level of inherent risk, but I think those risks can be mitigated by just being smart and creating very clear expectations, and also consequences if those expectations are not met. Because at the end of the day, we have to keep our community safe, and social media is open to the whole entire world and universe, and you have to be careful. And any school principal or school administrator or any school community that's ever been Zoom bombed, or any bombed in any of their meetings, it's not fun, and it's just disheartening, especially as educators. But I'm hearing about less and less of that. I'm hearing a lot more about great things people are doing with social media, and that is the focus. How do we really amplify social media in a way to really support what we're doing in the classroom? So that's pretty much it. I hope that this was helpful and not just me being long-winded. Please do me a huge favor um, and just subscribe, share this content with as many people as possible. My goal here is to make sure that I'm supporting as many educators as possible, family members and parents, anyone who's engaged with the education of a child, on looking at how we can use technology to really enhance that process. So again, I thank you so much for your time and your consideration in the space, and I hope to see you guys here again soon. All right, so be well, and we'll talk soon. All right, good night.